As you know, my name is Kyneton, the Tech Pro, and today we are going to be doing CRUD repository in Spring Framework. So this will be maybe 30 minutes, I don't know. So we are going to do it together. We are going to actually use Spring repository to leverage the functions that are already there to create, to do read, update, delete, and insert in Spring Framework. So this time we are not going to be hard coding anything. So I want you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on the subscribe button below this video. The reason is because I make these videos for you and my subscribers are very important to me. That is why sometimes I don't really take my breakfast and I start making these lessons. I'm not really dressed up. You can see I'm putting on this t-shirt because the weather is really hot. It's about 30 degrees. By the forecast, it's about 20 to 30 degrees. So forgive me for just dressing in this way. So let's go ahead to get started, hoping you subscribe so that we can do this together. And I also want to say I'm proud of you. If you are learning this, it means you are really making progress. This is a step-by-step, no steps skipped, procedure-based. Everything is there for you. The source code, the procedures, everything is there for you. If you miss out something, pause this video and then review it and get it right. If you have some challenges, leave me a comment below. Let me know the challenges you have. Again, if this video has been informative for you, let me know. Tell me thank you. Tell me I'm doing great. That will motivate me to continue doing more. So let's get started right now. So the steps are here, but I'm actually going to be using the Microsoft Word file. So this lesson follows from the previous one that we actually created an application for insert, delete, update, and insert, delete, update, and select. But we actually had coded the list. But this time we are going to use JPARepository to do this work. All right, so these are about 17 steps, so it's not really going to be a problem. So let's go ahead to get started. The first thing we are going to do, create a new Spring project called MVC Demo Data. So let's go ahead to Spring Framework. All right, so we have MVC Demo, the one we built in the previous tutorial. So this time we are going to say MVC Demo Data because we want to use Spring JPARepository. In case you don't know, JPARepository, JPA first means Java Persistence API, and JPARepository is just an interface that helps us to have already made functions, functions that have already been written to insert, select, update, and delete. Even insert by select by ID or get by ID is also there. So you don't have to actually write this custom code. So let's start by creating a new project, and we are going to call it. Again, I'm going to keep the Microsoft Word document open so that we'll be able to see where we are exactly. So let me shift this document to this place so I could keep it open while we work. Again, I recommend any step we take, we mark it as green. Any step we take, we mark it as green. So let me shift this so that I'll have some room. Let me reduce the size of this. Okay, fine. So, okay, good. So this is where we are right now. So let's create, again, I'm going to adjust my screen so that I'll be able to see the procedure side by side. All right, so I'm going to keep it this way. So the first step, create Spring project called MVC Demo Data, choose Web, JPA, and Apache Derby dependencies. So that's the step I'm going to take now. So I'm going to say new, and I'm going to choose new Spring Startup project, and I'm going to service URL the same, group ID the same. You can use my group ID if you want. So the name of this application is going to be, I'm calling it MVC Demo Data, and every other thing is the same. So MVC Demo is the previous one, Demo Data now is this one. This one we are going to use JPARepository instead of hard coding a list of items. So the name here should be not Spring MySQL, should be MVC Demo Data. Okay. What am I forgetting? I'm going to say next. So I'm going to choose JPA, and I'm going to choose Web, and I'm going to choose Apache Derby. Now Aperture DB is a database, but it's an in-memory database. So you have a database that you can actually package right in with your application. It exists in the class path, so you don't have to go to configure database server somewhere. It's already there in the class path, and it's an extra it's blazingly fast, really fast. It's an in-memory database, so it doesn't reside on the disk. And that is the same database like SAP HANA, H2, and a few other ones. But that is not that is not what we are doing today. Today we want to use JPARepository instead of hard coding. So I'm going to say next. Let me just cross-check to make sure everything is okay. Let me just go back one step. MVC demo data, nice, and I'm going to finish. So hopefully, so it takes a few seconds to set up. Okay, so you can see MVC demo data. So I'm going to mark the step 1 as green. So the next step says examine the pom.xml. Pom.xml is a file that holds the dependencies and the configuration for the application. POM or POM means project object module. So let's examine the pom.xml. So I'm going to drop down and go to pom.xml. We simply want to see and ensure that the dependencies that we added are really there. So let's scroll down. So you can see JPA, Spring Data JPA here. You can see Spring Boot Web, you can see Apache Derby, and it's runtime, so it's in memory, so it's really good. So I'm going to mark this as green as well. Copy the models and resources package to the new project. So now we don't need to write the student class, which is the model. We don't also need to write a new controller, so we can use the same controller we have in these applications. So let me copy them across. Because what we simply want to change, we want to change how we access data. So instead of hard coding the list of items, we want to use JPARepository to access this data. So I'm going to go to, it says copy the models and resources package. So this is the models and this is the resources package. So I can expand it so that you can see. So I'm going to copy it and I'm going to move it across to this place. I'm going to just say paste right here. All right, so we've copied across, so I can just collapse this. Test the new application, so mark as green. So now, again, I'm going to, to test it, I simply right click here and say run as Spring Boot application. So let's see, make some room here. So you can see Tomcat started on port 8080. So I'm going to use my browser to just, again, this page is available for you. In the description box, you can find this page so you can follow the procedure. You can also find the source codes if you want. If you miss out something, just check the source code and see that you have it. So HTTP localhost port 8080, and this time we are going to look at students, MVC demo /students. Okay, so MVC demo. So let's check where the problem is coming from. So I'm going to take a look at student resource file right here. So okay, the name is actually crude MVC. Crude MVC is not MVC demo, it's crude MVC. So I'm going to change it to crude MVC, crude MVC. Alright, so you have it's working, so everything is okay. So let's go to change something so that we use JPARepository instead of hard coding. Alright, so let's see where we are. We've tested the new application and it's working fine. Add identity annotation to the student class. That's the first thing you need to do in this case. So go to the student class. This is the student class, and I'm going to, at this time, add entity annotation. We are going to tell JPARepository or Spring Framework that this class represents an entity. It corresponds to a table in the database, in the in-memory database. So to do that, simply annotate it with @entity. All right. So the next thing is to annotate the ID with the @id annotation. So this is @id annotation. On your keyboard, hit Ctrl+Shift+O, and it will import the necessary namespaces so that you don't have those errors. Alright, so we've done this too, so we are really doing well. Again, like to say you are doing well. Thumbs up to you because you are really doing great. Programming takes some effort, and I'm good to know that you are putting the necessary effort. So, and also let me know you are there. That also motivates me to help me know that we are doing this together. I have some persons who I'm working with. Create a new class called Student Repository in the resources package. So in the resources package, that is here, I'm going to create a new class called Student Repository. So Student Repository eventually is going to extend CRUD repository. So Student Repository, okay, fine. So Student Repository is going to extend CRUD repository so that we'll have access to these functions, these already existing functions that are available in CRUD repository. Okay. So, what do we do? The next step says, I've done this. Make the repository an interface and let it extend CRUD repository. So I'm going to make it an interface. So it actually should be an interface right from the start, and it should extend CRUD repository, if I'm typing it correctly, repository. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to just import CRUD repository from data repository, CRUD repository. Okay, so this we've done. So I'm going to mark add the students and the string as types to the repository. So to do that, simply come here. Now we need to add the type of object we are working with. So we specify the class. I think this should be the ID. So the class will be students, and then the primary key will be the primary key type is what we are going to specify here. So the primary key type for student is what? Is string as well. So we are going to specify string. So the first item is the type of object we are working with, and the next item, the next parameter is the type of the primary key. So if the primary key was an integer, we'll have written an integer here, Ctrl+Shift+O on my keyboard, and it takes away the error. What is the next step? So I'm going to auto-wire the student repository into the student service. Now we have a student repository. Student repository is going to actually be handling get, post, update, and delete. So these are things we are going to be using in the service. So the service, we call the repository and ask the repository to provide some data, right? So in this case, we are not actually tampering with the controller, but we are trying to change the service to get data from the repository. So see how it goes. Requests come from the client. It hits the controller file. It routes from the controller to the service and the service to the repository. So try to figure it out how it works. So auto-wire the student repository into the student service. So we are going to modify the student service now, so that instead of the student service to be using this hard-coded list you see here in the screen, it's going to be using data from the repository. It's not going to be using this hard-coded list, it's going to be using the repository. So to do that, I'm going to first auto-wire the student repository into the student service. So to do that, just create a private member variable in this class and add annotation to it called auto-wired. So let's see. So I'm going to say students repository students repository no, so it should be private. So it should be private student repository. Perfect. Right. So I'm going to auto-wire it. Simply add an annotation at auto-wired. Okay, perfect. Ctrl-Shift-O on my keyboard to remove this error here. Okay, first I need to save. Perfect. So auto-wired. Ctrl-Shift-O on my keyboard. Perfect. All right, let's see where we are. We are moving now to step 11. Modify get all students of the student service to call the find all method of the student repository. So let's see. So the first thing we want to do is to modify this to call the find all method of the repository. So we are now seeing that the repository has a method called find all. So let's see. It's better to do it so that we understand exactly how it works. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to say students repository dot find all, right? So this find all methods returns all the students. So instead of using hard code, you are using only one line, find all, to return all the students. Eventually, I'm going to remove this list of students hard coded here. So you can see this one liner here does everything for us. But this find all returns an iterable. We must find a way to convert it to a list of students. So one thing we can do, I don't know if we can cast it to list of students. So let's see. So modify the get all students service to find all methods, create new array list, and loop through. Okay, so all right. So the first thing we do, let's say lists. I think there may be a way to. Let me try something. So let's say list of students equal to student repository that find all. So I think this would be okay. So now I'm going to cast it to a list of students. Yeah. So that makes it easy. So now this method is a different method which I'm going to also show you. So there is one method that can be used. So I'm having list of students is equal to list students. We are casting this return value to list of students. But let me show you another method of doing it. So another method of doing it, just say students equal to new array list. So students is equal to new array list. And then the next thing we are going to do is to look through the iterable returns. So I'm going to say something like, so I'm going to say students repository dot find all dot for each. So the for each, I'm going to now say for each students, for each item returned from this iterable, I'm going to add it to the array list I created using method reference. So now let me explain to you. So this is method 1 and this is method 2. So this is method 1 taking 3 lines. This is method 2 taking 1 line. So either method you want to use is fine. So I'm simply going to comment, or let me just comment, it's easier to comment this one out, but that would be something else. So I'll recommend you use the first method or the second method because it's really easy to use. It's 1 line. All right, so we've done this. So I'm going to mark it as green. So now one thing you can see that using CRUD repository, we now have 1 line that returns list of students. So we don't now have to write this list here. So I'm going to actually delete this from here. All right, so the next thing I want to do, I'm going to modify the add students to use the student repository. So to add a student, I'm going to use the student repository. So add student is here. So this is it. Again, it's just 1 line that can be used. So I'm going to say student repository dot save and give it a student. So this is how easy it is to use a repository. So just call dot save and it simply adds the student and you give it the student objective and save. The same thing for modifies. Okay, okay, so this is fine. Now there's something that we use that is easy to forget, and that is adding this property called auto DDL auto equal to update in the properties file. So that means that I think it means that if a table exists, then you actually update it. If it doesn't exist, you create a new one. So if the table exists in the in-memory database, then update it. If it doesn't exist, create a new one. So that is what this property is. If you don't add it, then you are actually going to be receiving errors along the line. So I'm going to copy and add it to the properties file, application.properties file. So I'm going to say, I like typing out, so I'm going to say JPA dot hibernate the DDL auto updates. Now, okay, yeah, you can see the DDL auto is equal to updates. Alright, so I'm going to save, and that is fine. So don't forget this step. This step is really very important. So the next step, I think we are making so much progress at this time. Test the service. So we are going to test this service now. Now we are not using any hard-coded list. The list we are using is not existing. We are creating a table on the fly, and then we are going to insert item into this table, select item from this table, delete and update. So let's test it to make sure everything is okay. So I'm going to come here and just click on run as. I can just click on this button that says relaunch. So click on it once. So it says there's error somewhere. So, okay, so okay, so now there's error. So let's complete writing all the methods before we test it. Modify the get student by ID to use student repository and change the return type to optional, right? So we are going to modify the get by ID. So I'm going to just remove this, and again I'm going to use one line. The repository will help us to use only one line. So I'm going to say students repository dot find by ID, and I'm going to find by ID. That's all. So that's it. So you see how easy it is to use a repository. It makes the work really very easy to use using a repository. So now we are going to correct this. So we are going to add a return type. Okay, so this is actually return. So we are returning these items. So we are going to use optional. So sometimes I don't understand what this optional is. I think it means if it doesn't find your return null or something like that. So I'm going to mark this as green. Modify the student repository. Modify the updates to use student repository save method. So this update, I'm going to take out all of this, and I'm going to use just the save method. So to do that, simply say student repository save. So that is how easy it is to use a repository. So finally, we are going to do the deletes, but we are going to use, let's check and see if we can use delete, or maybe delete by ID. So let's say student repository.delete by ID, and we give it the ID to delete, and that is all fine. Alright, so we are done. Now we are going to test this service. Let's see, I've done this, so I'm going to mark as green. Okay, perfect. So the last thing we are going to do is to test the service to make sure everything is working. So I'm going to, now we don't have any list of items, everything is completely empty. And if you don't know, you can use REST web client or Postman post client or something like that, because we can't use the browser to do updates and install. We have to use some REST client, and I'm using advanced REST client, ARC. So I'm going to open it up now. So I'm going to say run as Spring Boot app. There is error. Where is the error? This is very strange. Student resource having error. Okay, so let's just correct it. So let's change this. So it's the same optional return type. That is what is causing the error. So now let's relaunch the application. So this button helps you relaunch the application. So let me shift this upwards so that we see what is happening. Alright, so you can see that Tomcat started on port 8080. So let's go to test the application now. I'm going to open Advanced REST Client because that is what I use. So Advanced REST Client. Alright, so this Advanced REST Client is very handy when you want to test your REST API. Alright, so let's see. The URL for get, let's use URL for get. For get is crudem/crudemvc/students. Let's see. HTTP localhost colon 8080/crudemvc/students. So at this point there is no student record anywhere. There is no crudemvc/students. Okay, so we are having error. It says invalid response. Alright, so let's, okay, so we have errors out here, so let's see. For the occurrence of HTTP person errors, okay, so I think the problem is coming from, alright, let me just take some time to check. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's go to the student service, and this time instead of using this, we are going to use this. So let's use this. So we have students is equal to this. Students. So why do we have these errors? Okay, I get the point now. So I'm going to say list of students. Students is equal to new array list. So I'm going to save and I'm going to relaunch this application. So let's relaunch it. So let's see. So Tomcat started again at port 8080. So let's go to make the refresh. So here I'm going to send again URL. Let's see, localhost crudemvc. So let's just make sure everything is fine. So let's go to our student resource. We have /crudemvc/students. That is fine. Let me just close this project. So we have get mapping here. That's fine. Return student service that get all students. Let's go to student service. Student service that get all students. Okay, student repository that find all. Okay, so we have an error here. HTTP invalid character found in method name. Alright. Okay, so let's see. So we have get, who then we see slash students. Okay, invalid character found. HTTP names must be tokens. This is quite strange. Okay. Alright, so let's see. I think the problem must be coming from here. So HTTP, okay. Let's say HTTP. Okay, so this is where the problem is coming from. It should be HTTP, not HTTPS. So now we have empty array returns. So now we are going to try to insert a student data or a student object, and this time we are going to use post. And the post method is going to insert data. Is going to insert data into. Let's go to the student resource. So we have the add methods here. So it's still the same as slash students. Okay, so let's see. All right, so let's come here and let's try to add a new student record. So let me go to the body. The body which should contain the student record. So ID. Let's say the ID is S1. Okay, and the department is computer science. Let's just use my name. All right, so come on. So this time we have post, we have body, and that is fine. So I'm going to send, and it says IDs for the class must be manually assigned before calling save. The next exception is IDs for this class must be manually assigned before calling save. Okay, so it seems the ID has to be the first thing in the list in the list of items. So let's go ahead to make a get request. Get send. So we have it inserted using CRUD repository. Now let me insert a second student there. So then we see our student. So I'm going to go to post students. This time I'm going to put my name, Tyson. And my department should be IT, and I'm going to send. Okay, it is inserted. So if I go back to do a get request, so we have one item there. It's really strange. So let's get back to post. Body S1 send, and let's do a get request. I should be seeing two items. Good. Okay, so let's do a put request. Puts, and I'm going to modify the value of S1. This time I'm changing my department to software. All right, so software, I've changed it to software. So I'm going to send. Now I'm doing a put, so I actually should say slash S1, because I need to have this in the as part variable. So I change my department to software. So if I go back to do a get request to slash students, so I should have department have changed the software, as you can see. So what else are we forgetting? So we have delete. So let's try to delete one of them. Delete, and this time we are going to delete slash x1, and I'm going to run it. And if I go back to, it went well. So if I go back to get, I will only have just one, as you can see. So perfectly everything is okay. I'd like to thank you for viewing. We come to the end of using JPARepository. Please remember to go back, review everything, check the step by step. If you miss out anything, look at the code, look at the steps. Also, if you have challenges, leave me a comment below to let me know the challenges you have. And if this video has been informative for you, subscribe to my channel, like it, and feel free to share it around with your friends. I remain Kainton the Tech Pro, and I'm also, finally, I'll say I'm really proud of you. You are really doing great, and I'd like you to continue. Don't give up. Some programmers or persons who learn application development give up along the line, but don't give up. You'll actually get there if you continue to really work hard.